Very warm welcome here on Intention Monday. Embrace ownership and responsibility to unleash your potential. It's no accident that I've chosen this topic today because I'm really reflecting on things that have happened in the past where I haven't taken responsibility, where I haven't taken ownership, and things that are even happening now as well, where I can really take ownership and take responsibility. So, very warm welcome. My name is Rishi Patel. I'm the founder of Selling in Alignment, where I work with coaches and consultants to reprice and package their services so they can discover and live their purpose. I am really excited to bring you this week's Intention Monday, where we're really going to just bring a different energy to the week, where we just get to set the week up strong for how we want to go into the week. So I'm getting lots of emails and notifications to let me know that I'm live and I have good sound, which is great. Everything's working on that end. So let's get straight into today's topic. Let's go straight into it. So the first thing that I want to talk about really here is understanding ownership and looking at responsibility. So first of all, I've been thinking about these two words. I think that they're two incredibly powerful words. They have a lot uh, of meaning that we can really analyze about them. So let's look at the two words independently. And no mistake here that I've put ownership first and responsibility second. For me, like I really feel you can own something first before you have the response ability, right? So responsibility broken down into these two words of having response and ability. The ability to respond. And notice the word is not react ability, it's respond ability. And we'll talk about the differences between that as well. But once we really own something, we can take responsibility for it and we can bring a transformation to it and get a different result. I want to give you an example of how I was in the past, my way of being in the past. And I can distinctly remember key examples, events, incidents where I would play this blame game, where I would literally look at another and say, "You made me do that." Right? Like you forced me to stay in this environment. You forced me to stay in this business opportunity. You forced me to spend this much money on this investment. And guess what? No one can make me do anything. I genuinely have got that for myself. No one can make me do anything. But I had some unhealed trauma from the past where I stepped into this space of people pleasing and I didn't understand all of this was going on. And so I had to play the blame game. But the incredible thing about the blame game is that it's the easy way out. Like it was my easy way out. The second I pointed the finger at someone, it was like it was no longer my responsibility. I didn't need to own it. I could pass the onus to someone else. And long term, that just doesn't work. See, when I played the blame game and I pointed the finger, there was one finger pointing at the person, but there were three fingers pointing back at me. It comes from a famous saying. I've heard this so much. I've heard this so much, and I've always thought, wow, what a great saying. One finger pointing at the person, three fingers pointing at me. And guess what? I couldn't really just own it. I couldn't really just understand the depth of what this was telling me. And here's another thing that's really interesting is there's a number of times in my life where I've done this, where I've really just pointed the finger and said, actually, you're responsible for me being in this environment. But no, I'm responsible. I made the decisions, right? I invested the money. I started the business. I did all of these things that brought me into this moment, to this point in time where I get to stand in this space. And I need to own that. And that's the first thing that we can do is really have ownership over it before we have response ability. And I really got this for myself. And it's been a very, very powerful lesson. It's been an incredibly painful lesson and an incredibly powerful one. So I really believe that environment plays a key role in this. Environment. right? This space that you surround yourself with. And so for me, when I step into an environment, sometimes I still have expectations. So recently I've stepped into another environment and I have a certain expectation, a certain level that I have an expectation around that. And guess what? When I go into something with expectation, it means that ultimately I'm going to be let down. Now, if you're watching the replay, hashtag replay, let me know what you're taking away from this. If you're watching live, feel free to drop a comment and weigh in on the discussion. Let's really talk this through. What haven't you taken responsibility for? Either let me know live in the comments or drop me hashtag replay. What are you going to take responsibility for? Would be what you haven't taken responsibility for. And what I really got to see for myself is just that. Like, I step into this new environment. I have an expectation. It should be this way. And the second that I have that expectation, there's a lack of responsibility already. Because how and why should that environment be dictated? Like, why should it satisfy what my expectation is? There's no reason for that. So I can bring what I need to bring to the environment. And after I've given it my maximum, I can just let go and not worry about whatever outcome there is. And that's really the time I feel we can just experience this deep level of peace when we've really stepped into a new space, we've done our best. Maybe we came in with, maybe I definitely come in with an expectation, but I've done my best. And ultimately, then I've just been able to let it go. And I think that that's the power inside of that is response ability. Like any given situation that you're dealing with right now that's challenging, the question really is, what is your responsibility in that situation? And we have DG, who's just a great guy. If you haven't connected with him, make sure you do. He says, truly, we must take responsibility, and only then can we make progress. And it's so true. It's so true, isn't it? Once we take responsibility, then we have the ownership, then we get to bring the transformation about, and then we get to make the progress. And it's such a great point, and thanks for weighing in there, Digi. It's just such a superb thing to say, and I completely agree. Like, that's when you get to bring about the transformation. And, you know, inside of all of this, there may be things that have really triggered me in the past. And again, I need to be taking responsibility for my triggers. Now, even before I talk about triggers, I just want to explain this word because it may be a new word to some people. You know, on a gun, which can be used as a weapon, could be used for destruction, you have several elements of it. So you have the cartridge in which the actual bullet lies, you have the bullet itself, and then you have the trigger, right? And the trigger is the thing that gets pressed before a bullet can fly out. So an event that took place before the bullet flew out of the gun was the pulling of this trigger. So the trigger takes place first, then the bullet flies out, then the destruction gets caused. And what I want you to see from that is that there are so many components that take place before destruction gets caused. And initially it starts with pulling of this trigger. So trigger is really an inherent event that occurs, that happens, that causes a bunch of other things to happen for the final result to be produced. And so that's what a trigger is. And it can be a traumatic event. It can be something from childhood. And there was a bunch of triggers that I had for myself where I was looking at this and just saying that, you know, like maybe because of my childhood and being short for my age group, getting pushed around in playground, having that, creating a story around that for myself that I was bullied. I stepped into these environments and I just said yes to everyone and anything. And that really I'd step into an environment and I'd feel nervous. And stepping into an environment and getting told what to do was a comfort zone to me. Like I would say yes to everyone because I don't want to recreate what happened in the childhood. And so I need to take responsibility, responsibility for the trigger that was inherent from my childhood that caused me to not take ownership and not take responsibility. So this topic of ownership and responsibility is so powerful. And what I really want us to look at is what can we this week really take responsibility for? What can we go in strong with and say that, you know what, no matter what happens in this meeting that I've got coming up, this client that I'm working with, like this is what I take responsibility for. This is what I'm going to own this week. Like no matter what happens, I'll own this outcome. And that gives a great deal of power. I'd love to know what that is for you. Let me know what you've taken away from this. This is Intention Monday. My name's Rishi Patel, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Until the next time, keep selling in alignment.